Thank you for joining us in this segment of Forests to Fortune. This is your host, Alan Romero, and I have with me Alex Wilson, who is actually the guy that writes our blog, and I have Santiago from ITA Global. Alex, why don't you share with us a little bit about where you get your inspiration for everything you write to our database?
Oh, that's a great idea. Let me start by how this all kind of started, if you will. In 1999, I had a random mail order magazine come to my mailbox, and it was talking about Nicaragua could be the next Costa Rica. I'd traveled the world with a backpack as a youngster, and I'd been through both South America and Central America, but I hadn't been to Nicaragua, and I was quite, intrigued, if you will, about what this story was saying. And so I called one of my good friends who is a surfer in Orange County, California. And I asked him where he would normally go to surf, and he said, "Well, my favorite place is Nicaragua." And I go, "Wow! I just got a mail order catalog about that country." He said, "Yeah, it's fantastic. People misunderstand it terribly." He said, "Obviously, I do Costa Rica too, but Costa Rica is much more expensive." So this is 1999. And I talked to my wife, and she said, "Don't go down there. It's very dangerous." Talked to my dad. My dad was in the Air Force, blah, blah, blah. Talked to my father-in-law. He said no. But then I said to myself, shoot, I mean, Germany used to be not so nice. And other countries, maybe once upon a time, weren't so nice. But it looked really good in the article. And the article came from International Living, and I saw what they were doing there. And so, lo and behold, I said to Ken, "Let's go down." And so we went, and Ken bought his surfboard, and I bought a backpack, and we went up and down the coastline, and I was stunned. The coastline is very, very similar to the Southern California coastline. So just imagine, the valuation of the California coastline in Central America, in this place called Nicaragua. And I said to myself, maybe it's going to be 50 years from now, 100 years from now, where those two coastlines kind of merge for valuation, but I want to get some real estate now. And so I started buying a lot of property along the ocean for pennies on the dollar. First American Title Insurance Company was already there. Fee simple property. You could own it into your own name or any entity. Not like other parts of maybe Mexico and down into other areas where you don't actually own the dirt. Nicaragua was allowing you to own the dirt. And I actually, started a business in real estate for the first 8 years. We helped build a couple of hotels. We built lots of condominiums. But by 2008, there was that global crash, and our business kind of started to go down, our construction business, and one of our employees asked us, "Well, don't let us all go. Why don't you start a new business? Why don't you plant trees?" And I'm going, "Why would I ever want to plant a tree?" And he said, "Well, because you spent all that money on that expensive wood that you put in the door frames and the window frames and the windows, and that was all mahogany." And I said, "Well, I know, I paid for it. It's expensive wood." And he said, "Well, why don't you plant?" I go, "Well, I'll think about it." So I come home and I get online, and I'm thinking, the commodity, the commodity, the commodity. And I was probably on the computer for at least a few hours and then forgot about it. But then the next day I got back on the computer and I started looking at timber as an asset class, not just a commodity. And that's when it kind of hit me. Jeremy Grantham from the GMO Fund, I found that article where he says timber is the only low risk, high return asset. And I was never a stock investor. I always liked real estate. And then I look at this and I go, oh my gosh, yeah, this is, kind of very low risk because it's not financial markets that are creating the returns on investment. Mother Nature is. And so that was fascinating to my brain, at least. And so I started studying deeper and more. And then eventually I just said to Ken, my business partner at the time, and Ugo, my employee, let's start planting forests. And so it's, now it's 20 years later plus. And I found that, to be frank with you, there is no better investment than timber. I mean, you can look at real estate and, you can look at stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all of the different things. But I just don't think there's anything better than timber as an asset class for a portfolio. Now, of course, when you look across the world and you look across the US, over 80% of the forests are owned by families. Generally, family offices, multifamily offices, high net worth people, billionaires, which means very few individual investors ever even hear of timber as an asset class. I mean, ask your financial planner about timber. They're probably going to go, what, timber? This asset, this space, this investment space is not well known. Consequently, not very many people are invested in it, unless you're the very high net worth person or you're, into a fund and what have you. So for the average investor, we then started a company called Precious Timber. And we ran that for a long, long time. And then we met with Alan, and Alan had this passion, and he bought on Forests of Fortune and has moved the locations throughout Central America, Costa Rica, El Salvador, and the company's obviously getting very, very attractive around the world. We were in Europe not too long ago, and people are starting to realize that timber as an asset class for your portfolio is a really smart move. And in particular, right now, and what I'd like to share with you is a global movement that's happening in the real estate space. For over 120 years, we've been building cities and towns in concrete and steel. And those two elements, those two components are very, very dirty to the planet. The creation of steel and the creation of concrete. And Europe started 35 years ago or so to say, hey, let's try and build more sustainably. And so the Europeans, and particularly the Scandinavians, came up with a new formula that's called cross-laminated timber. It's also known as mass timber. And for 35 years now, they're building skyrise, high-rise buildings and all kinds of sports arenas and overpasses, freeway overpasses. And of course, America's caught on, and we probably have maybe 1,000 or so buildings in America. But think about over the next century. Over the last century, we've been building in concrete and steel, and the next century is all going to be wood. And so those of us that are investors that can get in now are going to really see some very, very high ROIs on their investments in timber. So that's basically, Alan, how I got into the wood business and how it's been a tremendous asset for me, for a lot of our clients. And I think anyone that's looking for something that is safe, that has very, very high ROIs when you compare it to typical investments. I mean, I know when you think about high ROIs, you usually think about high risk. Timber is a low risk, high return asset. So it's one of those few things that just how do you get that around your head when you know that, hey, I'm trying to build a portfolio, but somebody's telling me I can have exponential returns with very little risk? Well, we can, because it's been proved for centuries. So it's a great asset for a portfolio. It's a great commodity, and we're very, very close to having another tour to the rainforest. Our main forests that we've been planting is in Guatemala, and Guatemala has the second largest rainforest in the Americas after Brazil, and the Guatemalan government have protected their rainforest there so tremendously well over 60 plus years. And that's where Forest of Fortune's trees are. So anyone that's thinking about maybe putting a deep dive and doing what I did, and that was research the asset class, I would basically say, hey, come with us on one of our tours. Our tours are bespoke tours. You'll get to see from A to B how the asset class works. And not only that, you'll see a fantastic location. Being in a rainforest is unbelievable. Being in the Mayan ruins is amazing. You know, people go down to see the pyramids in Egypt, but there's pyramids just 3 hours away in Guatemala. People in Guatemala are great. The Guatemalan government is fantastic. And I would say, to finish up, if you're an investor that is looking to pass on a lot of wealth, you want to become generational family, generational wealth family, you have to have timber in your portfolio. So that's my introduction.
Thank you for that, Alex. I know that you and I met a number of years ago, and it was fascinating for me not only to hear about trees as an asset class, but then when I met the trees, it was all over for me. I really got the space, I got the returns, and I began to study, which is something that you recommend. And I also like the idea of having a diversification in different locations. So that was very attractive to me. And yes, this segment is all about the Discovery Tour. And somewhere along the line, actually, Alex and I met because of Santiago Aguilar, who had organized an event where Alex presented regarding Nicaragua. Santiago is a Nicaraguan himself. He's also an investor in our forests at Forest to Fortune. And he's the founder and CEO of ITA Global, a company dedicated to global experiences. And I'll let Santiago share a little bit more about that with us. But Santiago, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how we met, your passion behind what we do, and why you thought it was a good idea to create tours around a concept that Alex Wilson had done for many decades. And now we do them in a bespoke way for our institutional clients.
Thank you, Alain. Thank you, Alex. And yeah, this is believe it or not, it's been over a decade now that we've been, hearing and connecting. But it is such a small world. When we first connected, I was very inspired about Nicaragua because I saw what Alex saw a few years later, right? Almost 10 years after Alex saw it, I saw it. He was there in '99, and we started this in 2011. But when I saw it for the first time, I had the first thing, oh my God, this is incredible. And I remember clearly when we put this group together in Beverly Hills to talk about investing in Central America. And then we spoke about everything that was happening in tourism. And Alex spoke about the trees. And I left intrigued, but then I'm so glad that all of us interconnected into this, Alex, you planted the seed, literally. That's exactly what happened. Right? And as we have evolved over the years, I started understanding that timber, it's definitely an asset class. And that at that time I was not aware. And one of the stories that I always share is that I went to visit a friend of my father's in Nicaragua, and he had done extremely well in the insurance business. And he asked to visit his farm. So I went to visit his farm closer to Costa Rica on Lake Nicaragua. And then he showed me, as we're touring the farm, he showed me all these little trees. And I said, what is that for? 100 manzanas, about 100 and something acres of land full of trees. And it's like, oh, that's for my great-grandchildren. And then he looked at me like if I was supposed to know. He says, don't you know? I said, know what? You got to bury the money, he said. You got to bury the money and let it grow. When he said that, it's like, psh. But by then, I had already heard about what you were doing, Alex. And then that's when it was like a confirmation. Like, oh, my God, this guy, Alex, is not that crazy. And literally allowed me to really get, more into the whole thing. But as we have evolved with the company, ITA Global became a destination management company, and we do tours to over 30 countries around the world. But when Alain, shared with me the opportunity, I said, first of all, I told my business partner, I said, hey, man, we're not going to miss out on this one. We're going to invest. And he says, I trust you. I trust Alain. Let's invest into trees. And then as we continue understanding the industry, we took that trip to Mexico City. And in Mexico City, I think when we really connected, I really got to understand how timber, trees, I connected all the dots, nature, everything that's important, especially for us as a company. We could create an experience that allows investors to come into a place where everything is being taken care of, is being managed by our team, from the experience, the hotels, the meeting with the experts, and then not only that, allowing them to experience nature for what it is. And the most important thing, I think, for anybody that's invested in this industry, and it happened to me personally, even though we had invested, but when I got to see my trees, it really resonates. This is an actual something very true. It becomes very real. And something that Alex always mentions in all of your writings, Alex, is when you say, let Mother Nature do the work. And that is something very important, because as we have experienced different situations around the world, politically, economically, you always say the trees keep growing. And that is very true. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons why we see this project, that it's dear to our hearts as a company because it is in Central America, but at the same time it allows us to share an opportunity with people that typically are traveling just for fun, and this time they're traveling as an investor, as an investment opportunity.
Yes, so this is
I think we lost you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, so this is an impact investment opportunity, one that Alex shined a light upon many years ago. He may have not necessarily called it impact investment, but the category has emerged, and it is a very strong category now around the world.
Mhm.
So, having said that, why don't we begin to dig a little deeper into something that Alex started decades ago, and he called it the Discovery Tour. And it's something that we've adopted that has transformed, also with the help of ITA Global and their experience in travel experiences. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the tour, Santiago?
Yes, so the Discovery Tour was created exactly for that. So you can discover the opportunity, right, that the timber business brings. And it all starts when you arrive to Petén. Arriving in Petén, Guatemala, our team will typically pick you up at the airport. We will take it back to the hotel so you can get acclimated. And usually on night number one, we will have a welcome dinner where it allows you to get to meet other investors and understand a little bit more about the area we're developing on.
Excellent. Anything you'd like to say about our arrival day and acclimation, Alex?
Yeah, I think first of all, I would like to say the location, the hotel that we use is tremendous. I love the fact that it sits right on a lake. I love the fact that they used all the local materials, the wood. When you get into your room, it's really brings the tropical, feeling of where you're at. So it's a real, if you haven't ever been to a rainforest, you haven't ever slept in a rainforest, the noises and the sounds are tremendous. So this is to me, it's a bucket list location, whether or not you invest. It's just a great place to go and experience something that probably 99% of the population never ever experience.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, so as you can see, the accommodations and the location are spectacular.
Yeah.
The property is adjacent to a biosphere. And the definition of a biosphere, I was shocked by what it is. It's the group of ecosystems from which life emanates. So you will be faced with a lot of greenery and a lot of animals that are becoming extinct these days. Let's head over to the day after arrival.
Yeah, so on day number one, on day number one, you will be meeting with the industry. We're going to do an industry immersion where you will have the opportunity to talk to, hold on, lost my train of thought, Alain.
I can pick it up.
Yeah, actually, go ahead. Actually, you talk about this because you know Forest Com better than I do.
Yes, I can pick it up here. So,
okay.
ForestCom is a community concession. There are 12 concessions in the biosphere, and these are native communities that have been given a concession, a right to work with the forest and derive a living. This is a UN project as well as so it's public-private initiative. So resources and technical assistance are brought to the communities. It's an experiment that's been around for over 30 years now. And what you're seeing there at ForestCom, it's one of the mills that we're going to be visiting. And it's what's important about that is that you put your finger on supply and demand dynamics as well as pricing. So there you will be able to ascertain how much the tropical hardwood rough sawn lumber is going for, and what is the trend, and what is it being used for, and where is it being exported. So that's what we call the industry immersion. Anything you'd like to share with us, Alex, regarding industry immersion and the importance of it?
Yes, for your portfolio, for an investor's portfolio, as I said earlier, only 1% of the population globally are in the timber space as an asset class inside their portfolio. So that means 99% of investors just have never even heard of timber. In particular, we're talking about here high grade, high value. We're not talking about, fence posts and, paper products. This is high value stuff. Think about musical instruments, guitars. Think about symphony halls. Think about the interiors of billionaire yachts. This is actually it's like a diamond, if you will. It's not just a commodity. It's a luxury item. It's like a beautiful stone that's, for a $1 million wedding ring or something. We're talking about real high value. And that's why what I want to share with the investor that's listening today is when you take a look at the stories that I've sent and the messages that I've sent, you have seen that these species, this asset class, has an annualized ROI of anywhere between 30 and 40%. And I know, because I'm an investor too, when I see 30 and 40% annually, I generally immediately ignore it. And so what I want to emphasize today is, first of all, if you have a family generational plan, timber must be in it. And a 30 to 40% annualized returns that are not from just Forest of Fortune. These are, as we said before, this is Mother Nature doing the driver of the increasing value. What other asset can you really look to for a foundational part of your portfolio? So I think it's important for investors to understand not just the factors that you've explained, Alan, about the initiative that the government did, which, by the way, is remarkable and has had tremendous success for the citizenry, but also tremendous success for the exportation of this lumber to the US, to Europe, and to Asia.
Thank you for that, Alex. So essentially what we did is we took a UN project that works with communities, Our partner on the ground is a former director of this initiative known as the Mayan Biosphere Reserve. He was one of the first directors. We also took a 28-year protocol that he developed over time in order to grow these trees and be able to mature them within a reasonable amount of time. And we also took the experience of Alex Wilson, Precious Timber, and now we're mixing it in with the experience of ITA Global to create something very, very unique in this part of the world. The mahogany that you see there in the picture, as Alex was saying, goes to buyers, very, prominent family-owned businesses that make high-end use of it, like Fender and other musical instrument companies, family-owned companies. Very good. Let me go on to day 3, where vision meets reality. How about you share a little bit with us, Santiago, about your experience in having walked the project at hand, which is Las Azucenas, a private plantation based on a protocol that was developed over 28 years in time.
Yes, as a company and personally being there, this was one of the most inspiring days that I could say when it came down to this project, because you do get to see first of all, you get to see the reserve around the area, around the farm, and then you actually get to see the farm, the tree farm. And this is for me was easy to understand, but it was very powerful. There's a lot of people when we explain to people, and in simple terms, I will say, but this is that like growing a farm. Some people are growing corn, and in this case, we're growing trees. But when you get to see the trees and the size of the trees, some are 5-7 year olds. It is extremely impressive how neat and how manicured this cultivation looks. So when you see the mahogany, the Guatemalan rosewood, and or siricote and cedar, it is a very impressive day. So this is the day where you actually get to walk the farm. This is the day where you actually get to see the trees, and you get to conceptualize the whole idea into reality. And it is very powerful. And it's not only that, it's also very beautiful because it allows you to understand the impact this investment makes on the local communities. Because in order for us, for every investment that goes into these trees, you're hiring a lot of the local people, and it creates jobs. For the longevity of the projects, typically the maturity of these trees is around 18 years. So you can just put that into your head. We're creating jobs for 18 years for the local communities of this region. So yes, it is an eye-opening, and this is where, just like the slide says, where your vision meets the reality. Very powerful day, and this is the day that will definitely make you understand the value of your investment as a real asset.
Excellent. Alex, what would you say the significance of Las Azucenas is in the industry?
Well, Las Azucenas is really a remarkable location. As we know, Javier had a dream to take degraded, dead soils from a cattle ranch and said that he wants to turn it into a tropical rainforest. So my first question is that who thinks like that? I mean, that's a visionary. And so when you see the location, you're going to see a fully healthy rainforest where these beautiful, majestic trees are being grown. You can see on the image here, these are probably 3 or 4-year-old mahogany trees, and they're dead straight. And they've been managed like little babies. They're all with GPS coordinates, and all of the data that we receive from that technology is amazing. But to to emphasize again, think about that. Think about something that is dead, which that field was dead. And an individual said, I'm going to recreate and bring it back to life. And we're going to add an additional rainforest location to Guatemala. I mean, without these rainforests, we humans can't live on Earth. And so if you're thinking about not just the investment ROIs, which are exceptionally healthy and well, very, very strong ROIs, but think about, what we're doing to our biosphere, the additional emphasis on revitalization. And then as Santiago said, a lot of us are very, very fortunate, but then the vast majority of the population on Earth are not. And so being able to create a job, create multiple jobs, help a family, give education and a career, to me, there's nothing better. There's not a better investment that you could choose, to be honest with you.
Yes, no, so I saw everything that Alex and Santiago described. And what I would like to add is it's the character behind a man like Javier Esquivel, not only a visionary, but also an integrous man, a man with high integrity, very stable emotionally, and a man that has been investing in this remote part, not only of the world, but even remote within the region, in investing in men and women in that region, also developing not forest engineers, because we don't have a university, even though it is a university of its own, Las Azucenas, but certainly developing forest technicians. In the cultivation of these species, not everyone gets to work closely with the tree. Only highly trained technicians that Javier has groomed are the ones that manicure the tree so that it not only grows straight, but also grows in volume and grows healthy. Very good. Why don't we jump to day 3 in this slide? There are some more images of a group of investors along with Santiago and Chris that visited Las Azucenas. The upper right picture there shows what Alex was talking about, that all of this, regardless of the slide, was once a cattle ranch. So there was no more trees left. But the upper right corner picture is the reserve that I mentioned earlier that Javier started growing 28 years ago. So industry deep dive. Alex, why don't you share with us the importance of the industry deep dive, a meeting of the minds after everything that tour participants experience at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, once you have walked the fields, walked the forests, gone to the processing plants, touched and felt and seen the commodity, the wood, the quality, once you've learned where it all ends up in across the world, you get a very, very strong introduction, education. It's kind of a no-brainer at that point. Obviously, you feel like you've come across something that no one else knows, because quite frankly, it is, as I said, 1%, the 1%ers that own timber. I might just ask you a question. When was the last time your financial planner ever exposed or told you about timber as an asset class? Probably never. So the investment deep dive is particularly designed to share with you, as I mentioned earlier, the process and the future of mass timber, cross-laminated timber, where we're moving in across the whole world will be built out of lumber instead of concrete and steel for sustainability reasons, and also, of course, for aesthetics. I mean, when you think about we have to build these beautiful buildings and houses out of steel and concrete, and then we end up, in the interior spending a whole bunch more money with lumber and other things for flooring and wall coverings. That'll be over. But when you build a mass timber building, the interior is already gorgeous. So it's an investment dive to share with you the education on the timber space, and then B, the valuation. It's kind of high ROIs, which are generally, when you think of high returns, it's generally high risk. This is completely the opposite, as I shared with you earlier. Where do you find low risk coupled with high returns? So that is part of the investment deep dive. And then I think finally, it's not just an individual investment for yourself. It's an individual investment for the family, for future generations. And so those are the 3 points that I think you're going to enjoy when we talk and share with you the deep dive of what this asset class is and what it can do.
Excellent, Alex. Thank you.
Excellent.
So yes, when Alex talks about returns, think exponential returns. And if you look at the definition of exponential returns, it's when two variables that are correlated increase at the same time. In this case, the tree increases in volume over time. So your dollars are increasing in volume literally with the tree. And then the price of the timber itself is constantly increasing. It's never been seen to decrease in this space because it's scarce. It's a scarce resource. It's a protected resource. What we grow is FSC certified timber at the end of the day, and we export it through the community concessions. So we're working with the local industry. We have a mature tropical hardwood industry in Petén that we would love for you to visit and experience with us. To wrap it up, I will hand the mic over to Santiago to share with us any last thoughts about the Discovery Tour.
Mm-hmm. Well, once again, the Discovery Tour has been created for you to have the most pleasant and beautiful experience, not only talking about the investments, but for you to also appreciate the beauty of Guatemala. In the region of Petén, you will get to see the rainforest. You will get to feel the authenticity of the people, and not only that, you're also going to have a great time, stay in a beautiful hotel, enjoy the traditional cuisine, which is phenomenal, and then get to see for yourself the investment opportunities that Forest to Fortune brings. So the Discovery Tour is set for you to have a pleasant experience, for the 4 days that you'll be there.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining us today. We will be gathering every other week, at the very least, to talk to you more and more about what it is that we do. There is lots to share, and we are excited to share with you. So thank you for joining us in this segment.